blood on the staircase, neon in the gutter, and a silent God who refuses to answer. In this episode, I sit down with author Megan Stockton to unravel her brutal and unforgettable novel, Pink Neon. We talk about survival, trauma bonds, and the casual violence of men who wear different faces but serve the same sickness. Stockton's work doesn't flinch from the ugliness of the world, and neither does this conversation. If you want more dark discussions like this, consider supporting the show by heading over to patreon.com/The Dark Mind Podcast and become a citizen of the darkness. You'll get daily blog posts, weekly book and film reviews, and you'll be helping to keep the dark conversations alive. So without further ado, I give you Megan Stockton. Megan, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me on this 30th day of July 2025. I came across your novel Pink Neon, as always, on Bookstagram, and the striking cover pulled me in, the seductive synopsis sealed the deal, and the story itself blew me away. And when I spoke with Rebecca Rowland at Texas AuthorCon this year, she noticed I was holding the autographed copy of Pink Neon that you gave me, and she made it a point to mention a particular assault scene. She leaned in and she said, what was it, quote, "Oh, she's wrong for that."
Yeah.
So it was a compliment, though.
Oh yeah, I take that as a compliment.
And I knew exactly what she meant when I got to that part, and coupled with the dark, gritty narrative set in the seedy underbelly of urban decay, you've created a masterwork of transgressive noir. So thank you for joining me on the show to talk about this unforgettable novel.
Thank you so much.
So let's see a little bit about the book. The story centers on a woman named Tansy and the two women she lives with, Alice and Lucy. They're sex workers navigating a brutal stretch of the city under the control of an even more brutal pimp named DJ. When one of the girls crosses him, the situation quickly turns dangerous, and as the pressure builds, a mysterious woman begins seeking out Tansy's services, making cryptic comments about killing men, and that's when the story truly kicks into gear. So, your first scene pulls no punches. Tansy is dragging a bleeding Alice up a staircase covered in vomit and urine. From the start, you're daring the reader to look away. Was that opening always your plan, or did the story demand you begin with bodily truth?
When I started the book, I had that opening scene and the ending already completed. Sometimes I start on one end or the other, but those were two scenes that didn't change as I wrote. That's where I started. But I wanted to set up that physical and emotional terrain, so to speak, immediately. And I felt like this image of Tansy dragging Alice up the stairs on that first page forced the reader to kind of look at the world head on, kind of so like an instant confrontation of like the survival and degradation and stuff the girls go through. So that was always the opening that I had in mind to start with.
Is that kind of a common tactic with your books? You have the beginning and the ending, and then you kind of like figure out what's going to happen in between? Or
no, I am a creature of chaos, and I mean, I really am. Sometimes the scene is in the middle, like and it may be totally irrelevant to the plot. Like it's a random scene in the middle, and it's just a vibe. So it really depends. This one, I do frequently have an ending in mind before, and sometimes it changes, as I go. But this one, I had that opening scene, and then I knew exactly how it was going to end too from the get go. So I just had this, all the filling had to do that.
Gotcha. Well, as Tansy holds Alice in the shower because her body is hot, I'm assuming her body was hot because of like meth or angel dust. Is that right? The way it heats your body up?
Yeah, she had taken, or somebody had given her Molly, and that causes.
Oh, MDMA.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Yeah. So Tansy is holding Alice in the shower, trying to cool her down. And she whispers to God, quote, "If you're here, please don't look." And that line affected me. It's this raw blend of shame and futility. Do you see pink neon as a kind of prayer, angry and unanswered, that's whispered into the void?
It kind of is, I guess, like an angry prayer overall, because Tansy's not really. She's not seeking help. She's just asking to not be seen. And I do think that embodies that shame of being witnessed in this suffering. But it also implicates like a silent God in that cycle of suffering. You know what I mean? So the story is really about, asking, but hoping for something, but expecting absolutely nothing, I guess. And it shows how kind of, I guess, like a divine intervention almost felt invasive, so she would rather be invisible than have salvation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So maybe not completely what you're talking about, but like silent God as in indifferent God, because I've had issues with addiction, alcohol, not like meth or anything like that. But, I've had just like one problem after the other. And it was like, whatever God you're supposed to, the higher power they tell you you're supposed to pray to, just completely either indifferent or just wasn't paying attention or didn't exist. One of the two. Yeah. But it was a little cathartic to be able to just pray, even if you didn't expect anything to happen. Is that kind of the...
Yeah, kind of, really. And, obviously she believes that someone is listening, a higher power is listening to her. But she has just, I guess, no faith that he's going to do anything for her. But she still, decided to speak to him in that moment.
Gotcha. Well, there is a jarring contrast in your tone. Lyrical one moment, brutally clinical in the next. Did you find yourself slipping between those registers naturally, or was it a conscious decision to unsettle the reader's expectations?
I guess it was kind of to unsettle the reader a little bit. I think it's kind of jarring, I guess, to go back and forth between those different types of prose. And I do that. I feel like I do that in a lot of my work because I like the horrific things to feel kind of pretty sometimes in an unexpected way, And I tried to make Missy's voice distinct in her chapters where it was a little colder. There was less description of everything except the murder. Like she wasn't, we didn't get many descriptions of like what was going on around her or anything like that. It was just kind of that linear side that she had,
Yeah. Oh, I have so many questions about Missy. That was a strange ranger. So Tansy spends the book navigating both physical danger and emotional paralysis. There's a moment where she mentally disassociates from sex work like she's watching it happen to someone else. So what conversations, internal or external, shaped your understanding of that kind of survival mechanism?
Well, it is like a psychological defense, of course, and I've personally experienced dissociation in my life as a trauma response. Sometimes you just, when you don't want to be somewhere or even if you're overstimulated, I still get put right back into that dissociative state, even though, I'm not actively experiencing something terrible like I have before. People talk about like going to your happy place, or whatever when you're going through something difficult. But for me, it's always been, it's not necessarily a place. It's like little clips and snippets from all your senses, scents or feelings that are both emotional and physical, places, colors, sounds, tastes. And so Tansy, she does that. She goes somewhere else sometimes to protect herself when she's in those types of situations too.
Have you ever done or know somebody that's done EMDR therapy?
No.
It's the, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. It's the light bar where the lights just go back and forth and
Okay.
you follow it with just your eyes, like like a police officer
Yeah.
telling you. Yeah, it's weird. The theory is that if you have a traumatic experience that's still messing with you, it's because you didn't process it totally.
Okay.
It was too traumatic, so you kind of like stopped it in its tracks, but now it's like
Yeah.
on a continuous feedback loop.
Yeah.
And so they walk you through it, and then you'll start from the beginning, talk a little bit about it, and then they'll stop you and you'll watch this thing. And it's almost like, I just thought of it now as you were talking about it. It's like,
Mhm.
are they making you disassociate for a second just
I,
to calm down?
it sounds like it might be, yeah. You kind of
And then they
separate
just,
yourself from that, so then you can put it in a box, because it's not sticking to you, I guess, anymore.
yeah, because then you'll continue on,
Hmm.
and then they'll stop you again. And
Hmm.
it's like they're having you process the entire traumatic event, but you're taking these little disassociation breaks,
Hmm. Yeah,
if that
yeah.
makes sense.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still not convinced that it works. I did it one time.
I've not tried it, but I'm intrigued now, so.
Yeah. Well, one of the most disturbing scenes in your book shows DJ forcing Tansy to perform oral sex as a punishment, not for pleasure. There's nothing erotic at all in the depiction. It's just control. So, how do you write scenes like that keep them honest without slipping into exploitation?
You have to kind of adapt a refusal to like dress up those scenes. You want it to be gross and nasty and uncomfortable. And so by focusing more on, like in that instance, Tansy's dissociation, her sensory discomfort, and stuff like that, it keeps the reader hopefully from slipping into feeling like it's voyeurism and more emphasizing the horror and psychological trauma that she's going through instead. But yeah, it's absolutely not an erotic scene at all. It's just, power and being degraded, basically.
Yeah. A lot of rough scenes in the book. When it comes to Tansy, Alice, and Lucy's pimp, DJ, there's a deeply uncomfortable realism to him. He's not over the top evil, just methodical, entitled, and terrifying in how casual his violence is. What was your process for writing a pimp who embodies structural abuse without slipping into caricature?
Yeah, I definitely didn't want him to feel like, like a cartoon villain or anything. And I think his power is chilling because it is casual. His like entitlement and violence are kind of extensions of this system that rewards control. And that's probably, something he doesn't have outside of this work. So the realism of the behaviors being rooted in, I don't know, he's calculated, but he's also kind of like, he's a mundane kind of evil. So I feel like that makes him more disturbing than any overblown archetype.
Yeah, I'm not going to say what happens exactly, but the scene where he kind of leaves his area and
Mhm.
goes to a bar looking to pick up a woman,
Mhm.
it's like when he's out of his element, he's kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
He's just
exactly.
some drunk at the bar, and like women are just like, "Oh, get the hell away from me."
Yep.
Whereas if he's in his element, he's got his reputation, and people
Exactly.
are cowering. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, piggybacking off that, every man in this book feels like a variation of the same sickness. DJ the pimp, Donnie the club owner, and Aaron, which I believe was he DJ's cousin?
Nephew, I think.
Nephew. Okay. Did you write them as distinct personalities or as different masks worn by the same structural predator?
As far as those three characters go, I didn't want them to be interchangeable, so I definitely wanted them to be like distinct characters with their own motivations and flaws and personalities. But in the end, they serve the same function in the system. They play different roles, but they're still just extensions of that patriarchal script of control. So distinct in flavor, but not in essence, so to speak. But I definitely wanted all of the men, almost all the men that she encountered on the strip, to basically just be the same person at their core with a different face. But then once she meets someone and can, even like when she leaves the strip, even the cab driver is kind to her, without expecting anything. So she I hope almost the reader's perception of men also shifts as we're taken out of that area, basically.
Yeah, and I don't really have a question for you about it. I just wanted to make a statement that one of the most genuinely human scenes, I suppose, in that book is when Tansy is, going to a nice area to meet somebody. Um, she's in that cab or Uber cab, whatever, and the nice old man's driving it, some friendly father-like banter and so on. And when he gets out, he walks around and he opens the door for her and she says something like, something to the effect that, oh, chivalry's not dead or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, please don't forget to give me a rating on, whatever service it was. And she was like, 5 stars. Mwah! And he blows him a kiss and he grabs it and gets back in. I don't know why that scene stood out to me, but I was like, of all the darkness, like right then, I was like, man, that's like a genuinely human moment that kind of hits you in the feels for a second.
Yeah.
So, circling back to the chronology, the line, quote, "I want to be able to trust you," is used as a threat more than once. In Pink Neon, trust feels like something offered just before punishment. Was that a conscious reversal of intimacy?
Yeah, it's definitely weaponized, so then it doesn't precede intimacy like you would or expect that usually. So it's more of like a justification for control. It's not earned, it's demanded. So that reversal is intentional and kind of manipulative. It feels like permission in a gaslighting kind of way. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, the relationship between Tansy, Alice, and Lucy doesn't feel so much like sisterhood as it does a trauma bond. Were you intentionally writing against the typical found family trope we see in survival fiction?
Oh yeah, they're definitely trauma bonded. Their connection isn't built on, like your shared dreams or even mutual affection. It's more common wounds and survival, I guess. So I deliberately avoided that whole found family trope because this is more like how proximity in the same kind of suffering, creates a codependency that might feel or look like love, but it isn't always. It's just necessity. So they're sisters in the way that they rely on each other, but it's more functional than it is affectionate. Alice, she isn't necessarily a bad person, but she would throw him under the bus, if in certain situations she would. Tansy's a little more protective, I guess, especially of Lucy. So there's some loyalty there, but otherwise it's just co-survival,
Yeah, and even in one of the most traumatic incidents that they're involved in, they kind of it's not that they're not upset, but they kind of act in a very clinical, detached way because this is just the way it is on the streets, type of thing. So now we get to the interesting part here. The mysterious woman who hires Tansy, who might be a killer, shifts the book into something more mythic, even vampiric. How much of her presence is grounded in realism and how much in metaphor? And listeners at home, I'm kind of making the assumption that you've read the book, but if you don't know, I'm talking about a woman named Missy who just kind of appears out of the darkness.
Her presence definitely, I feel like warps reality just a little bit. But most of her is intended to be grounded in realism. She does tilt a little towards metaphor, representing violent feminine power, vengeance, and that role reversal that you usually have with like your victims and stuff like that. And she has this detachment from fear and morality and social rules that everybody else is kind of shackled by in this world. So yeah, I didn't intend for her to really be supernatural, but she definitely felt almost a little like, is this lady real? Because she just walked in like, she didn't have those same concerns and I guess obligations to morality or anything that everybody else did.
Yeah. Kind of like the female Übermensch that Nietzsche spoke about. I don't know. What's the German word for woman? Übermensch, I think, is overman. I'll figure it out. Yeah. And one thing about her, kind of what you said, she never shows fear. And the only thing that even resembles joy is when she's dishing out the worst kind of punishment. To me, kind of reads like a textbook sociopath, but it's kind of hypocritical of me, I suppose, when we just got finished talking about people being tied to morality, to call somebody a sociopath who technically is not tied to morality. So that's why we assume it's because they, don't have empathy. But is that how you see her? And is there any chance we'll see her again in another story, like maybe one that digs deeper into her backstory?
Yes, I definitely kind of do view her as a sociopath. She's the sister to my serial killer in Quite Pretty Things, which I reference that in little Easter eggs in the book. So that's a crime thriller, and if people have read it, then they would pick up on those little things. But I do have a prequel set up for her. I've already started it and everything. I just kind of wanted to let this book simmer for a little while.
Dibs on the arc.
Hey, I'll send you one. It's called Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Dead Boys. And it's mostly about like her career, I guess, as a killer, but it dips back and forth into her childhood and shows like her unique thought processes and experiences as a young person with the mindset that she has. So it's been fun to work on.
That sounds amazing. Hurry up.
I'm trying.
Well, there is a heavy undercurrent of surveillance and being watched by men and by each other. Was paranoia a theme you set out to explore directly?
Yeah, because it's all about this terrible system, and paranoia is almost used as like a tool because it causes the girls to self-police. So it's like an autopilot type of control that they have over these workers because they're convinced that there's eyes everywhere and they can't get out, and they tell themselves that they're trapped, even if the door's open, So that fear of being caught and punished for trying to escape or whatever overpowers that desire to escape, I guess. But then, like, there's a scene with Missy, it's towards the beginning of the book, I guess, where she's killing someone and there's literally people walking down the street, like, as she's killing someone. And that kind of proves that paranoia may not even be justified. But there's always somebody watching, but nobody's there to help. More or less.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like Kitty Genovese, just nobody wants to be involved, just step over the corpse. Or no, actually, in her case, it was walk by as she's being stabbed to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really would like to see a mock-up of I forget the name of the club that Donnie owns, but like you walk into his office and the floor is glass overlooking some kink room or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you have a mock-up of that, or is that just all in the,
I don't have a mock-up of it, but it probably wouldn't be hard to put one together. I kind of, did you read Blue Jay?
No, I didn't.
So like there's also some Easter eggs involving Blue Jay in Pink Neon, and there's a club in it where people go to torture, kill, rape, whatever, people. They pay to get in, and Donnie kind of dips into that world a little bit. So yeah, that the club was kind of designed after a couple of clubs that are in some of my other books where that kind of stuff happens. But yeah, so he's just got a full view of his little room below his feet.
Yeah, it's intense. And it's not great for the, I was about to say his girls, but the women he's exploiting, I should say,
yes.
To walk in and talk to him and look down and see that.
It's another layer of intimidation,
Yeah.
So.
Well, there is a character who says, quote, "I want a safe place, away from all the noise, maybe a little house in East Bend." Is that voice of hope something you believe in or something you buried kind of on purpose, I suppose?
I guess I kind of buried that on purpose because the character that said that felt like she destroyed what home she had when she left. So it was hard for her to think even that her family might still want her to come back, even though they clearly do, But even in that case, when she's presented with, "Oh, what's your dream?" she goes straight to that place she ran away from. It, instinctually, that was the first thing she thought of. So the other girls have this like ideal over the top setup that they want. And all she wanted was to go to the place that she had left behind. So it was more about regret and self-punishment, I guess, than hope. She just wants a distance from the danger that she accidentally put herself in. And even when she mentions it, the girls, it's not met with like a celebration or anything, like they were giggling about their own dreams. It was, they were kind of like, so it's kind of melancholy fell over him. And so it was a coping mechanism, and it was buried beneath just like, I guess, this grim resignation.
Yeah, I don't know if it would cause any spoilers or not, but I'm curious to know, like, what sort of mental headspace is that particular character in, where she wants to go back to where she left, and the people she left want her to come back,
Yeah.
but she feels like she can't. Like, what kind of
With that particular character, some of it's pride, which is how she ended up in this situation in the first place. But I purposely didn't give a lot of backstory, details and backstory on those characters, because I wanted it to almost feel like they feel, and that person's dead. Like, that doesn't matter anymore. And I think she was also a little brainwashed. Alice got her in there pretty quickly and convinced her that you can't go back. Like, there is no going back. And then there's also that shame of the things that she's done. And of course, she meets a character that starts to make her feel like maybe she can, move past that, and it's not irreversible. But that's kind of where she's at mentally.
Gotcha. Well, the ice cream date at Sugarman's Creamery caught me off guard a little bit. Caught, that particular character off guard as well. It was wholesome and almost too normal for this book.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you write that as a breath for the reader, or was that scene meant to sting with the possibility of something safe that, well, I guess I can say the character, something safe that Tansy will never have?
Yeah, it was definitely meant to hurt. She starts wanting to believe that she can have that normal life, like I had just said, and she almost does, like, she kind of lets herself kind of sink into it, but then, 2 streets over is the place she just came from. It's right there. She's just barely displaced. And almost all of those people that she meets on the strip are terrible people. They're just all teeth in the same system. But then there's this ordinary world that feels like a dream come true. So it's like a fever dream, but not in the way you usually see it, where like the normalcy is jarring and not the horror, instead of just being like this little glimpse of horror and you're like stunned. It's like, oh, this is nice, So it's destabilizing, I think, I hope that it is for the reader.
Well, did you ever scare yourself while writing this? Was there a line you almost didn't cross?
I didn't really scare myself any, and there weren't really any lines that I didn't want to cross. I was a little uncomfortable with a specific scene.
The one Rebecca talked about?
Yes, but not, well, actually, no. What happens because of that scene later on?
Oh, okay.
Because, that type of loss gets under my skin sometimes. So it's not something I typically read or engage in a whole lot. But I thought it was necessary to the story, and I wasn't super uncomfortable writing it or anything, but that would be the closest probably. That was probably the scene that made me the most uncomfortable.
Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Didn't know how to go around it without saying it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, no, you want to leave those trauma bombs under the radar. Well, let's see here. So horror often confronts taboo. What pushed Pink Neon past what you've written before, and how did you decide what lines were necessary to cross? Or, I mean, is this, in the scheme of your bibliography, not as intense as some of your other stuff?
It's intense in a different way, because we're kind of pushing past horror into like social condemnation. Like, we're looking at a system, and but not just the system, we're also looking at the people that it hurts. So while I've written some stuff that may be a little more graphic or whatever, a lot of times it's the intent's not the same that I'm hoping, because this is wanting you to confront that horror that is very real. So it's not made to like arouse or anything like that. So yeah, and I wanted to also focus on a group of people, sex workers who are sometimes marginalized, dehumanized, looked down on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that you use the word system. I've been reading a lot of interesting philosophy that doesn't view things in the traditional way, views them as systems, like almost like living organisms, threshers that you get kind of sucked into. Sex work I know there's, sex work where it's like
Yeah.
I think they
Yeah.
have dental plans,
Yeah.
stuff
I mean,
like that.
yeah.
But,
It's a whole thing, but yeah.
yeah, but like, I mean, on the street under the control of a violent pimp,
Yeah.
that's a system that they get sucked up into. And I mean, I think it was that movie, Sicario. One of the most salient lines was something to the effect of until 20%, I think, of the American population stops putting that shit up their nose, we're going to have to, I mean, there's this need for vice that keeps particular industries alive, and they can be mainstream or they can be seedy and abusive.
Yep.
So, do you kind of view that system as kind of like a self-governing organism? It's almost like you can't find the people that are responsible. They're just cogs. The whole thing is just outside of anybody's control.
I really do. In my book, Blue Jay, a character actually confronts another character about like, why would you basically deal in flesh, selling your fellow person. I don't want to give away anything in that, but, and that person tells them, like there's demand. I'm just supplying the demand. Like I'm not the one consuming this. They are.
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm just giving them what they want. Even if I don't give it to them, they're still going to want it. Somebody else is going to give it to them. And I definitely think that that's how it is. It's just a massive machine and you can't easily dismantle it. There's not a one way or an easy way to undo all of that.
Yeah. And like you can get upset with the government when it comes to AI. You can get upset with the government. Like, why are we pushing so hard for this? This is going to get out of control. We got to get it under control. Well, you can do that, but nobody else is. And if you don't, they're going to, so it's like, it's like you have to do the wrong thing almost.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Well, what is something you wrestled with while writing Pink Neon that you're still not sure you got right? Or do you feel like you nailed it?
I never feel like I nailed it.
I figure like I don't think I've ever interviewed an author that's been like, oh man, this one was flawless.
Oh no. I don't know. I can't think of anything in particular that I've struggled with. I was a little nervous writing about sex workers, especially, when there are so many different types of sex workers and I was dealing with, one specific facet. And I definitely I don't want it to feel like I think that that's the only type of sex work that there is or anything like that, or that it's the only way that, that system works anywhere. So I have some contacts that are sex workers. I talked to some of them, didn't necessarily let them read the entire book, but we talked about the way that things work and stuff like that. And I did do some research into books that I felt like weren't biased one way or another, nonfiction books and stuff like that. So I tried to be sensitive to those people while still getting what I needed to out of the book. So other than that, there wasn't anything I really struggled with.
Are you familiar with Erin Lewis, the author?
Erin Lewis.
She's a former stripper. She wrote some fiction books. She also wrote some nonfiction books. She's kind of an advocate for humanism, atheism, stuff like that as well. Mm-hmm. She was telling me, we started talking about prostitution, and she told me about this website, Old Pros. It's an organization. It's a nonprofit that uses storytelling to advocate for sex worker rights.
Oh, cool.
And I guess this is the podcast. The oldest profession podcast with Caitlin Bailey. I've never looked into it, but I remember she told me about it and just popped into my head.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so circling back to the book, do you ever wonder how your book would have been received if you wrote it with a male narrator?
I definitely think it would change everything. Depending on which male narrator, you were following specifically. And even if it were a male sex worker, put into Tansy's place instead, I still don't think it would have the same effect. It might be a little less intimate. And I definitely think that rage is crucial to this particular story, especially when the person that it's the villain of the story, but is also kind of the hero of the story in a little bit of way, is also a woman. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
so I feel like that. I feel like it would totally change. It would be a completely different book, even following the exact same acts and everything. It would be totally different.
Well, I think I know the answer to this one, but did you write this book to disturb the reader or hold up a mirror or both?
Both a little bit, but mostly to hold up a mirror to that structural violence and then rub your face in it, because it's, I want to make you question your comfort in looking away from things like that, because some of it does happen. But, always, horror, I guess the intention is to disturb too. So I guess that's always going to be a facet of it.
Yeah. So, how did Pink Neon's tone and structure differ from your prior novels?
I don't feel like the structure differed a whole lot, other than this was mostly one point of view, and I usually do multiple point of views. And my tone kind of adapts to each work that I'm, in at the time. But overall, I don't feel like it differed in any way. But it was one of the easiest books I've written, as far as just I could sit down and just write on it and never really got hung up on anything. I knew exactly where I was going and what I was doing. So it came incredibly easy. I don't know why, but.
How big would you say, as far as like world building, would you say, the particular area was, kind of just a secluded part of the edge of downtown? Like, how would you describe the particular area?
So like the city of Sunning, the entire city, almost all of my books take place in the same fictional part of Tennessee. So Sunning is based on Memphis, both size and layout for the most part. And the strip is basically just like one section that, you have the people with a whole bunch of money come in, and then certain parts of the city become just like, your stuff that the people who live there can't afford, and then you've got those places that just kind of die off, out when old factories and stuff like that. And, they're just left. And so the strip is off kind of in one of those sections of town that I think I had mentioned in the book. I think I put it in the book. At least it's in my head. That exact street was one of the oldest streets in the city, and it was when coal mining was big in that area, and that's where the whole city started. But everything moved off of that, and that street just remained. And I guess just those particular activities kind of festered there. And that's the only thing that kept that section alive, because everything else around it is shut down and abandoned.
Well, so much of Pink Neon lives in what's not said. People lie, people freeze, people perform. What was your approach to writing silence as a form of survival?
Well, the girls use that, I guess, mostly as a protective mechanism, and staying quiet and just keeping your head down and doing what you're supposed to be doing is how they survive, and honesty and vulnerability are punished, so that's how they get through it. They kind of endure. And I don't feel like silence isn't necessarily the absence of in the book so much as it's just like it's its own form of communication between them. So a lot of times they'll leave things unsaid, like, they're not telling each other about their pasts. They're not telling each other their real names. They're not, any of that. So it's like, that detachment is necessary. And then when people do, like, a particular character reveals something that she's excited about, they kind of don't know how to deal with that, intimate information that she's giving them, and they feel implicated all of a sudden, and they feel like they're in danger because she let them in, more or less. So that's a lot of times the silence protects them against like escalation, so they don't want to trigger any kind of punishment or abandonment or anything like that. So choosing to be silent isn't necessarily passive so much as it's like an active shield that they're placing, to protect themselves.
And that woman, I can't pronounce her name, the one that drove around and she would pass out clean syringes, condoms.
Oh, Keyston, yeah.
What is it?
Keyston, I
Keyston.
believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand there are people that go out and do that, because they have some people that are just like, they're not going to leave the life, but they try to help them by keeping, reducing the spread of disease and, whether by needle or by sexual contact. But as far as the people, somebody like her that drives around passing that stuff out, talking to people and can possibly get them out of the life, do those people actually exist?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are people, I've never met someone who does both, but I know of people who either were, previously were sex workers and will go out where they know that some of these girls are working, and they will give them snacks, condoms, clean needles, stuff like that, just because you can't stop it. So you might as well make it as safe as you can for them. And then there are several programs. I can't think of there's a woman, I believe her name's Rachel Lloyd, and she was I think she was actually trafficked as a child. I can't remember specifically, but she has an entire program that honestly, the like FemPower in the book was kind of modeled after. I can't remember the name of the program though. But she goes out and tries to talk to at-risk girls and women and convince them to get out of the life so she can help them get them back on their feet. It's like a whole nonprofit thing. So yeah, those people exist.
I'm seeing a few things here. Does World's Children's Prize sound familiar?
I feel like the acronym was like GIRLS or something.
Okay.
Girls Educational Mentoring Services. So GEMS. It's her.
Yeah.
I think that's the lady I'm thinking of.
Rachel Elizabeth Lloyd, British anti-trafficking advocate, author and founder of Girls Educational Mentors. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's, and I think I read one of her books, maybe, I can't remember. Because I read several or sections of several and tried to get kind of different points of view, the people who are like actively fighting against it and the people who are in it and didn't care to get out. They didn't want to get out, and stuff like that, just to get a well-rounded view of everything. And then I talked to some people that like I said, I knew that were involved in that kind of thing too. Just to get the best, most unbiased, view of it that I could.
Have you seen this? Very Young Girls is a 2007 documentary film that presents the work of the GEMS, basically, directed by David Shiskal. Film is an expose of human trafficking that follows 13 and 14-year-old American girls as they are coerced and exploited on New York streets by pimps.
I haven't watched it, but I will.
Wow. It's intense.
Yeah.
Well, circling back to some aspects of the book in relation to that, the violence in the book isn't very loud. It's quiet, sudden, and a lot of times routine, especially when inflicted by men. Was that a deliberate choice to mirror how real-world abuse so often hides in plain sight?
Oh, yeah, because this type of thing, it's insidious and it's everyday, and as we've said before, unnoticed or ignored entirely. So making the violence kind of quiet reinforces how like normalized it is, especially for women in these positions. And it kind of makes the reader ask themselves, are you okay with this happening? And how okay are you? At what point are you not okay? So the violence isn't like cinematic. It's in these mundane spaces. And so the quietness is kind of the point. So does it come with like horror music or anything like that? Or, an over the top score? It's just a belt buckle or a bag of drugs. So, it's a deliberate choice. Yeah.
Well, we spoke about Missy possibly being a sociopath. There's something ritualistic about her, though. It's almost like she's performing violence the way someone else might perform prayer. Was there a spiritual or mythical layer to her character in your mind?
Not really. She obviously finds some kind of pleasure in control, and I feel like the killings aren't really an act of rage. So because she doesn't feel those emotions like a lot of people do, so it's more method, which can make the kills feel like offerings or something instead, because they're detached from all of that. So she's methodical. You know, things have a specific way she feels like they need to go because she wants to be in control of that situation. So yeah, I don't feel like she's doing it for any kind of spiritual reason or anything like that. It's just, it's her own kind of ritual or, you know, offering to that little bit of pleasure that she thinks she's getting from all of that.
Yeah, one relation, at least to ritual, that is kind of associated with sociopaths or psychopaths is I forget what I was watching, but they had, you know, iconic quote unquote psychopaths. I think Hannibal Lecter was one, and I forget who else it was, but another one was Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. And out of all of these they listed, they said that Anton Chigurh's character was the one that actually qualified as a psychopath because he had a code he followed. So I guess there's like ritual and code kind of associated with being a sociopath.
Yeah, I think it's just a need for things to go as expected, because I feel like the unexpected isn't
acceptable.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that's kind of, I kind of kept that in mind when she was killing people. But even though she seemed like, you know, she's kind of excited or whatever, she just doesn't process and feel those emotions like a normal person does. So it feels very like she's cooking a recipe, you know? Like,
yeah,
she wants everything to go a certain way and to feel a certain way and to end up a certain way.
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job of writing. It's almost like you did a great job of writing what she didn't do. You know, like it was just like descriptions of she didn't seem to react. She strangely all of a sudden turned completely cold and didn't even wait for the door to close when I got out, you know. And yeah, the way you described her, just, I mean, you could almost feel a cold chill just metaphorically from the way she would wax and wane. And even the human-like emotions that she had seemed so painted on and procedural. Yeah. Well, the word home comes up a few times, but it never lands. In your mind, does Tansy even know what that word means anymore?
I feel like not really. I think home's kind of become an abstract concept to her. So she has like that, I guess, nostalgia of the good aspects of home, but there's not really any substance left. So her trauma's kind of like fragmented, any clear image of safety or even the origin of home anymore. So it's a corrupted word and concept to her at the point at which the book starts.
Did you have a particular well-known person, celebrity that Tansy would look like? Like if you had to say in your mind what she looked like, who would you relate her to?
Oh man, I don't really know. My husband and I talked about, my husband's an indie filmmaker, so he's constantly like, "Oh, who would you cast as these people?" You know, he's always saying that. And the other day we were talking about it, and God, who did he say? I can't remember. It's hard for me to put like real people, because in my head they have, you know, they have a face, and it's not anybody else's face. So that makes it hard. My husband said when he read it, he imagined she was Sabrina Carpenter, which I was like, no.
Sabrina Carpenter. What is she? I know the name. I couldn't tell you that I even know what she looks like.
It's not, that doesn't work for me.
Oh my God. No, this is nothing like
it doesn't work for me at all.
No. You know, this may be just as bad, but let me find a picture that's not so glamorous, because obviously if she's walking the streets, she's not going to be all in a frickin' Met Gala dress. Right. But let's see. I mean, I guess this is good enough. Let's see. Where am I at here? This is who I kind of had in my mind, but with shorter hair.
No.
Anne Hathaway, no?
Still doesn't work for me.
Okay.
But it's just very hard, because I have very like vivid images of these people. And they don't look like anybody. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, well, I could deal with that. Or
can you sketch?
God, no, I wish, but unfortunately not.
All right. We're going to have to hook your brain up to something. Well, your prose holds this tension between softness and rupture. Did you write your first drafts like that, or is that balance something you sculpt in revision?
I am a one draft and done girly.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's terrible. And it's not ideal at all, but it's just how I operate. I'm never going to win any awards for how I write or change anything major in the writing world because that's how I have to do it. So I will
I think Cormac McCarthy had that same attitude. I'm just saying.
Well, I will complete a draft and then I don't read over it. I'm done. I have a very close relationship with my editor. She goes through and she makes all of the edits as far as grammatical stuff and syntax and everything. She just does those and I let her do it. If there's anything she sees and she's like, I don't like the way this is worded, or I feel like this is clunky, I will look at that stuff. But once it's edited, I format it and I release it into the world, and I probably don't look at it again for another year. The audiobook just came out for Pink Neon and I listened to it, and that was my first experience consuming the book myself. So
who did the audiobook?
Fright Night Audio did it, and I believe it was Stacey Gonzalez was the narrator.
Okay. Yeah, you're familiar with Blaine Daigle, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh my God. His newest one, Ashes of August Manor.
August Manor is very good. I read it.
Just listen to a sample of the audiobook. Jennifer Pickens did it. Holy God in heaven.
I would 100% listen to it, just to experience it again, because I thought it was a very good, just modern Gothic, very good.
Yeah, I mean, and the voice actor Jennifer Pickens, she's just that. The voice is the atmosphere. It's just perfect.
Yeah, so. I'll have to get that then. I listen to 8 hours of audiobooks a day because I work at home on a computer, so I go through a lot of audiobooks.
I don't. My attention span will not allow it. I have to be tethered to a book.
I have ADHD, so but. I do listen to some music and some podcasts and stuff like that too. But I've kind of trained myself to where I can turn the book on and I absorb most of it while I sit there and mindlessly type away.
Sounds good. Well, when you were in the thick of writing Pink Neon, were you emotionally inside the story, or did you keep yourself at a distance? I guess you could say disassociate.
I'm always emotionally in it. I feel like I almost get too involved in my books. Sometimes it's an immersive experience for me. So I feel like I experience the emotions firsthand, but I don't feel like it's, sometimes it's exhausting. Sometimes I have to take a break if something's emotionally heavy. And there were aspects of this one that were, but yeah, I'm pretty in there when I'm doing those emotionally. I'm pretty attached.
Well, this is probably a question I think your husband has probably already asked you. Do you think Pink Neon could work as a film, or is the intimacy of the prose what makes it hit so hard?
I always have trouble, almost like with the whole mind casting or head canon, whatever you call it.
What's
I think that head canon, where you think of what's canon, what the people look like as casting them, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I have trouble with even thinking about my books as films a lot of times, but I think visually it could work, but you would lose that intimacy, and especially during the internal trauma and dissociations, because so much is internalized and can't be shown externally. I feel like that would be kind of hard to translate. So it would. I think it could work as a film, but it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have the same impact. But I will say, and I don't know how well I executed this, but color theory in film, where you'll light a scene a certain way to try to work off of the the subconscious emotions that those colors, elicit or whatever. I tried to do that in the book. So of course I absolutely mutilated what pink usually feels like, as a color. But, I was using it, in my Patreon, they called it the book. They wouldn't call it Pink Neon. They called it Pink Noir. So, but then Missy, every time she shows up, there's an absence of color. So they're in the car and everything's black, and she's always in a shadow. And so when you go back through, you can see those kind of colors, I guess the colors that are set in the scenes. So I tried to do that, and I feel like that would be very pretty in like as far as in a film. But I think it would make an okay film. It just wouldn't have that same. The focus would have to be different. It would have to just be about a serial killer, you know. And then I guess the struggle of the girls would still be there, but it would not be as. It wouldn't feel as important, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were talking about lighting, like the light that I've got in that lamp is, it's actually scene lighting that's meant to be used in there's a name for it. Scene lighting that's, just to be used in like regular lamps so that, they don't have to have the set all cluttered with, booms and stuff like that. They can have regular appliances with good scene lighting. And I like one of my favorite directors is Denis Villeneuve. And did you see Blade Runner 2049?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those long emotional shots, the use of color. So I agree with you, but I feel like he or someone like him could get really close to just through editing and direction by conveying those emotions, because obviously you could have Tansy's voice narrating, but when she's going through these things, obviously there's like this description of every nuance of what she's feeling, and obviously you can't do that. But I think someone like him could get very close. Probably couldn't do it, but like get very close with editing and just come up with all weird ways. It would be interesting to see.
I think it would be too.
Yeah. Well, are there any new up-and-coming authors that you've been impressed with that you would like to give a plug, since we are in the community here?
I have not been able to read as much this year as I usually do, especially from like newer authors. But I read MJ Marr's new book this year. Oh man, the titles escaped me. The Something Experiments. It's good. Very, very, very good. I read David Slater's Air Conditioned Nightmare. Really interesting. Yeah, that one's I think it's out now. It was good. And then I read David Washburn's Where Pop Stars Go to Die, which was so much fun. And then I've read several things that Royal Poff hasn't put out yet, but they do some really fun stuff. And one of them that they have, I don't know when they're planning on releasing it, but it feels almost cosmic horror. It'll be a novella. And I just finished it this morning and I really enjoyed it too. So those would be some people I'd keep my eye on.
MJ is one of my pals, so I want to make sure we don't skirt over at the Fovea experiments.
So good. Yeah. And I love MJ.
I had her on the show for her short story collection. I don't think this was out yet, though. Or when did it come out? Do you know?
Not too terribly long ago. So
yeah, I think that might have been the issue.
It was very, very good.
Yeah.
I've liked everything I've read by her, though. So
yes, indeed. Well, I was there, but tell me about your experience at this year's Texas AuthorCon.
I had a good time as always. I like going down there because I don't. I see some of the same people, but it's also a lot of the people who don't make it over to the East Coast stuff, so I get to kind of connect with those people again. So it was a great event. We had a good time. Got to meet some people I hadn't met before. Sold some books. Ate some good food. Bought a couple of books.
Oh, yeah?
Always.
Tell me about it.
No, let's see. I got Last Tour at Sulphur Creek by Paul Avery Tyndall. I got that, and I got David Hardy's second Rage book. He has like a zombie book series, and I've read the first one, really enjoyed it, and so I picked up the second one. I think I traded both of them for those, and then I picked up 2 smutty books because the girl was just absolutely endearing, and she's like, and this one is Sex and Guns, and I was like, I'll be back. so I did go back, and she was tickled. She didn't think I was coming back, but. So I bought that. I'm
glad I didn't walk by somebody say Sex and Guns. I would have been like, yeah, let's.
Well, she was sharing a table with David Hardy, and I was waiting on him to come back. He was on the phone, and she was just talking to me, and she was really sweet. And I love people that like feed off their energy. And so I was like, well, yeah, just tell me about your books. And she's like, oh, well, they're kind of smutty. And I was like, I like smut. That's fine. And so she goes through and tells me about them. And those 2, she was like, yeah, this one's like Sex and Guns. And I was like, all right, sold. So yeah, I did get those. And I think that's all that I ended up picking up. Wasn't a whole. I didn't get as much as I usually do.
Yeah.
But
well, Megan, it has been a pleasure talking with you, as always.
Absolutely. It's always a good time.
So as we bring the show to a close, is there anything you'd like to plug or let your readers know about?
I'm hopefully going to have my haunted house / ghost story out by the end of the year. No promises. But you can just kind of keep up with the information on that on my website. And it's meganstocktonbooks.com. I'll do my best to have something else out by the end of the year. If I get my ass in gear.
What about the Missy book?
I'm still working on it.
All right, just put everything else to the side and finish that one. All right, sounds good. Well, listeners at home, all links are in the description. And Megan, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who tuned in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday for a new episode featuring the best and brightest authors and filmmakers of dark literature and film. So until then, stay healthy, stay sane, and as always, thank you for listening. See you next time.